Yeah, pull this up and
Okay.
and let's talk the lines here.
Yeah. So what this represents is the years. The blue is 2021, orange is 2022, black is 2020.
You hit a button.
Where did it go? I touched a thing. And the dark orange is 2024. These are
Wow.
the land border encounters by month. And what's frightening is one, the numbers jump through the roof right away. October, November, you can see it just skyrockets over 300,000. Okay. That's in less than 3 months. You come down here, and the really frightening part is it's all single adults. And already in
Yeah.
2024, you're close to 500,000 of them. What is not being said here is that these single adults are war age males.
Yeah, between what 16 and
45
45
is typically the accepted age bracket for such a creature.
For such activities.
These are pouring into the country. They don't have anything to do. When you have young men gathered together in groups of a single homogenous identity or groups of homogenous identities, they're bored, they're in city areas. The first things they go for are burglary, rape, violence, and murder.
Yeah.
Like clockwork.
Well, first of all, that happened all across Europe. While, back
already, it's been happening for the last 15 years.
No, I'm talking about in the Middle Ages.
Oh, yes.
Back when the Crusades were kicking off.
Back when Istanbul was Constantinople.
Yeah. Well, the thing is there was all these young people hanging around in Europe, and they're getting in all kinds of problems. Well, we got to get rid of some of these military age guys, and how about we have a crusade or 3?
Ooh, this is a very long story.
It is.
You're right. You're right, but that's in a compressed period of time.
Correct. And I'm giving you a very brief description of what happens when you have too many men in one place and they have fuck all to do.
I history like you math.
Yeah.
And it's causing that thing in the back of my head, the little history monster is like beating on the window. Let me in. Yeah, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that going on in the back of my head right now.
But I mean, historically speaking,
you're correct.
Whenever a country has a bunch of war age males sitting around doing nothing, listen, men are not good at sitting around being bored.
That's a
shit is going to happen.
That's a fact.
Yep. Up in New York City, I believe it was last week or not too long ago, there was a report of a mass quote unquote riot that ended with a lot of people getting, some extra holes poked in them.
Mm-hmm.
They get stabbed.
And it was a little stabby. It was like a London on a Thursday. And it was between the black migrants and the brown migrants. They apparently, one of them looked across at each other and they went to town on each other.
Yes.
And that's actually, when people start tribing up, that's what happens.
Yep.
Also, a lot of those countries, it's just a fact. It is what it is. There's a lot of subpar IQ going on there. And with subpar IQ comes low impulse control.
Or hyper violence.
Hyper violence and low impulse control.
Yeah, you're correct.
They'll just do stuff. And it means they get stabby.
Yeah.
When groups of room temperature IQ people get together, people tend to end up room temperature.
That's true. That is an absolute fact.
Good. That's a good observation.
Yeah. How would you put that on a shirt? Room temperature IQs equal room temperature bodies?
I don't know.
Yeah, we can hash that out.
We'll figure it out. That's one there though, Jimmy. I like that. So in 2021 is when the trouble really, really began to peak at the border, though. I mean, you can see from this graph right here, the Mexican numbers dropped way off. And then they picked up because everybody wanted in on the party. You can just walk into America and it's fine.
Yeah.
But the other than Mexico people crossing the border,
that is skyrocketed.
So from basically 29,000 to 1.05 million is not a coincidence.
No,
That is not a
it's
coincidence.
intentional.
It is intentional.
Yes.
There is no other way to get numbers like that.
Well, first of all, if you are a refugee, how the hell are you walking across 4 or 5 different countries, coming through Mexico, and then making it to the
and
border?
an ocean.
What?
And an ocean.
Yeah, and the ocean.
And an ocean.
Yep.
Bullshit. This is intentionally being done, and we need to figure out who's doing it, and perhaps revoke their lease.
WEF, UN, the WHO,
Yep.
members of
And-
our own Congress, the EU, and it's all being facilitated by them. The actual transporters are those NGOs.
Yes.
It is what it is. There's no real way to deny it. Growing old sucks because I keep having to take my glasses off and then put them back on again so that I don't get a flaming fucking headache from looking at you across the room through these, but then put my glasses on to look at the screen here.
I got you.
And it's all a bag of
But-
dicks.
I mean, this is a straight up invasion.
Yeah.
And it's being done on purpose.
Yes.
And nobody is talking about it except for the conspiracy theorists out there.
We're them now.
We are them now, even though we're just we're showing you the numbers.
Yes.
All right. We've talked about actual policies. We're showing the people coming across since 2016.
Yes.
All right. And if you're going to call somebody an istophobe idiot because they're lining up 2 parts of a column to get to a box of numbers, you're out of your fucking mind.
Yeah. I want to show people here one more time. We'll start in 1980 where we had 226,545,805 white Americans in the country. And why am I focusing on the whites? Not because I'm an istophobic. It's not. Okay. It's because that was the base population of the country. That is our core culture. It is what it is. When I lived in Korea, I expected to be treated like an outsider.
Uh-huh.
And I made a point of behaving within their parameters of manners and customs because I was in their country.
Correct.
This is ours.
But yet these
country.
people coming over don't acclimatize or assimilate to
No.
our culture.
But you can see it goes from 226 million, 231, 233, 235, 237 to 246 in 89. And then we come down here to 1997, 8 years later, 267 million.
So it's a slow uptick.
We're fine.
Mhm.
Nothing has happened to the white population of the United States of America. I mean this as a white pill. A white pill.
White pill for Whitey?
Istophobic too.
What?
Istophobic too.
White pill for
Am I
Whitey?
getting that white pill for Whitey?
I was gonna say, is that called a whitey pill?
It's like an 80s garage band, White Pills for Whitey. Totally 80s garage band right there.
Yeah.
Anyway, our population is fine. We're not losing any numbers. We're not having any problems with birth rates. It's nonsense being sold to us. You don't want populations to spike.
No, I know, but
Our older population will die off and then it will pick up again and then it will level off and do this, what it's doing right now.
well, we can hope,
It's
yeah.
a normal pattern. Well, that's what's supposed to happen anyway.
Yes.
But instead we're being flooded. We're still at 89% of the population. There's just 40% that's illegal that needs to be thrown out. That doesn't belong here at all.
Yeah, we definitely do need to throw a lot of the. And here's another thing that some people are going to get pissed off about. If your parents came here illegally when you were a child and all of a sudden you guys get hemmed up and you want to get sent back, you want to sing the blues that it's mean to send you back because you lived here your entire life, you need to point that negativity at your goddamn parents because they're the ones that broke the law to
Yep.
bring you here in the first place.
Sorry.
Sorry. Bummer.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry.
And here's another thing we need to get rid of. If you come here illegally and then you decide to have a child that's born here on our country, you should not be a U.S. citizen. You didn't do it right. You need to get all boxed up, sent back to where you came from, and fill out the paperwork and go through the correct steps.
No other country on earth that I know of allows this process. And it is a corruption of the actual process, which was meant to be so that when slaves had babies, after they had gotten rid of slavery, right?
Mhm.
They wanted to make sure that those babies couldn't just be snatched up and sold off. So they declared those babies to be citizens because the slaves were not technically citizens yet. It
Okay.
was in that gray spot between we're done with slavery
And we don't know what to do.
and we don't know what to do,
Yeah.
where blacks are now citizens. Most people don't know that the United States of America, Britain passed the law in 1756.
Correct.
The United States of America passed the law in 1798, ending the international slave trade.
Correct.
Then they stopped slavery altogether, and that happened in 1808.
In the northern states, not in the southern states.
It was supposed to be all of them.
Yes.
Okay, so there comes the argument where the Civil War was fought over slavery, except for one problem. The Industrial Revolution had happened 3 years before the beginning of the Civil War, which makes, and I'm sorry about this, but it's just a fact, okay? It makes slaves of all kinds. It made them obsolete farm equipment.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's
you're
a
right.
that's a whole other show. We won't go down that rabbit hole,
Yep.
but it's just a fact.
You
Obsolete
are
farm
correct.
equipment. Sorry.
Yeah, you're right.
Yep.
You're right.
There
Absolutely
is.
correct.
I will poke my head down that rabbit hole just a little bit. There's been a rumor going around that I've heard. I
Hey,
can't
Jimmy, just a
confirm it.
tip.
Just a tip. Yep. The reason why that slavery lasted so long in the United States is because when Thomas Jefferson penned the Declaration of Independence, rumor has it that he wanted to completely get rid of slavery. All men are created equal. He wanted to live by those words. The only reason why that didn't happen was because the southern colonies wanted to keep their slaves in order to fight with Britain.
I know there were arguments about that.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing.
I am
I've-
positive that there were arguments about that. Here's
And-
another
yep.
tidbit for you. Slavery did continue in the United States, mostly in the Northeast, because it was black slaves who were freed. How do I know this? Because I've hugged a slave.
Hmm.
My great-grandfather was an indentured servant from the ages of 7 to 16.
Yeah.
And
Then
you
you
can
had-
say, oh, it's indentured servitude. He ran away.
Yeah, and actually,
Escaped
I
to the Upper Peninsula.
I
I've hugged
have
a slave.
the notes of a novel I'm working on about an individual who gets shanghaied in Seattle during that period of time, and then comes back and wreaks revenge.
I could tell you some of the family stories, and you could use the elements.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I have actually hugged a slave. My great grandfather was indentured from the age of 7 to 16.
Yeah.
And it just was. Irish kids got sold off to pay the damn rent.
Yep.
They sold kids to pay the rent because they didn't have any choice.
Correct. And listen, back then in Ireland, England let a lot of those people starve to death during the potato famine, and they did it on purpose.
Ireland was one of the most bountiful farming countries in the West.
Yep.
They just didn't let the Irish have any of the damn food. It all went to England.
There's that, and the fact that they did have that
The potato
potato
blight.
famine, the blight. Yeah.
Right. But the Irish were only eating potatoes because they couldn't get any of the food that was grown in the rest of the island.
Yeah.
Watch Grunt Speak live every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern. And if you want to join Pop for Supporter Sundays, go to redonkulous.com/donate and make a monthly pledge. A link is in the Meat Gazer box.